What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
So Ben, you've slightly postponed this recording by a few minutes because you said you were buying turnips.
Yes.
I need to ask what dire turnip needs you had, and did you go to the store just to buy like a turnip?
You sent us a text with no context other than you need to delay 10 minutes because you need to buy turnips.
My exact text was, "We'll be there at 10 minutes late. Have to buy turnips." End message. Second message, "We'll explain."
Yeah. So here we are. Explain, please.
Okay. So these were not real turnips. I don't know if this makes it better or worse.
So far, worse.
Okay. So are you familiar with the video game Animal Crossing?
I am.
Oh my god.
So in Animal Crossing, there is a mechanic in the game which is Sal Jones' Stalk Market, which is basically investing in turnips. And yes, Sal Jones' Stalk Market is an incredible pun, and I love it every time I see it. But yeah, basically you can buy turnips, and then every day you get a price in the morning and a price in the evening that'll fluctuate, and you try to sell them at a profit. But I'm in a like turnip, what
guild?
I don't know.
Turnip
like
guild.
It's more like what are those? What do you call it when there's like a bunch of businesses who control an industry all sneaky like?
Monopoly?
No, that's not what I'm looking for. It's like
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, consortium. A turnip consortium.
Yes.
Of people who keep a spreadsheet of our turnip prices so we can buy them for as cheap as possible and sell them for as much as possible and become millionaires in Animal Crossing this way.
There's not a spreadsheet, is there?
There is a spreadsheet in Google Sheets.
Oh my god. I'm sorry I asked. I'm sorry. This is not good. I'm going to ask a better question, which is our question for today, which is, what if we all lived in glass houses? Like the famous proverb. Saying? It's not a proverb.
It's not really a
proverb.
Is it a proverb? No,
Proverb.
a proverb. I feel like a proverb is more of a story, right?
That's a fable.
No, I think a proverb is appropriate.
What is a proverb? Hold on.
Let's Google what a proverb is.
A short, pithy saying. So
Yeah.
it is a proverb.
Okay, so it is a proverb. You're
That's
right.
what I
As
thought.
long as it's pithy.
It is. I mean, is it pithy?
It's got to be pithy. So when we say glass houses, what do we mean? Basically, the way we considered it was glass walls, floors, and ceiling. So like all the main parts are glass. The stuff inside the house, the furniture and, things inside don't have to be glass. You can furnish your house as you like. You can put more glass in there if you want to.
You choose to.
But you can have like a regular couch. It's not like every single last piece of thing is glass. But that's about all we got as far as parameters go. Just big glass houses. And Ben, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I, took this to the obvious place, and I wanted to figure out how bad is throwing a stone in a glass house, because clearly we have to ask this question.
I'm now mad at you twice already today.
Man, it's gonna go up. You know that it's not gonna be just twice. You've known me for long enough. I'm gonna make you mad way more than that.
All right, Ben, explain to us how throwing rocks is bad.
So I'm making an assumption here. My big assumption here, that I think is a pretty safe assumption, is that for these glass houses, we want to use tempered glass. So tempering is basically a process where you do like heating and chemical processes on the glass as you're making it. That one makes it stronger than regular glass. It's roughly 4 times stronger than standard glass with the same like thickness and size and whatnot. And sort of more importantly for safety in this super glassy world, when tempered glass breaks, it doesn't just break into like shards like glass does kind of in your mind. It crumbles into like grains almost, right? They're kind of like big. You've seen tempered glass break before at some point probably. And it's like little cubey pieces of glass that are just much safer if they're shattering than like the big shards. So I figure that's probably just for safety, a good call. So we had to figure out how much force we actually need to break glass, which was really, really frustrating to find, actually. The biggest reason being that is going to vary based on like the size of the piece of glass, because glass breaks because it flexes, right? So it's going to flex more easily with a bigger piece of glass. So there's not just like a standard number you can find, but I was going to try anyway.
but that didn't stop me from continuing to Google.
So my thought here is I just needed to find a like somewhat accepted number for a like whatever the standard size piece of glass is, and assume we would make our houses out of that. I figured that was the only way I could actually do this in any sort of reasonable way. So let's find a number. So the first one I found was sourced from a website that no longer exists and the domain is parked, which is a pretty bad start. But that had 24,000 psi, which is pound force per square inch, which is kind of like the standard pressure unit to break tempered glass. I didn't want to use that if I didn't have to, because I found a couple places, but both links led back to the same website, which was, once again, no longer existing, which seemed rough. It was, admittedly, as far as I can tell, a like glass supplier, so I thought it was probably at least somewhat safe, but not ideal. So my goal, I wanted to find a source from the ASTM, which is the American Society for Testing and Materials, which I'm pretty sure we've talked about before. They just make like standards for materials and testing. That one you probably could have figured out on your own.
And they're American.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Like if you work in any construction or technical job that involves literally anything that requires materials to have specific properties to work, you're probably familiar with ASTM.
Right. Yeah. So they had one. It was a document for standards for tempered glass, but it cost $50, and I wasn't going to spend $50 on this. So I tried to Google around and find...
level of commitment, not spending $50 on glass
I had to
research.
put a lot of money into turnips this morning, so, you know, it's not real money. I feel like I should clarify this in case people don't understand that joke. Anyway, I tried to, you know, Google around a little bit for anyone who just happened to have put it up online. And I actually couldn't find it, which was surprising. Although I did find a listing, like a document that was all of the ASTM standards documents. And it had roughly 50 names like of documents per page, and it had 260 pages, which...
There are a lot of materials.
Yeah, there's a lot of materials. So... long story short, I was forced to use the number from the non-existent website. So we're going to assume that 24,000 PSI is right. To be fair, from like the bit of stuff I could see other places, that looked reasonable. So I don't think it's that far off if it's not completely accurate, but it gives us at least a pretty good frame of reference, I think. So our next step is figure out how much force a thrown rock is going to have, which is kind of tricky to figure out because obviously rocks are different, you know, sizes and weights, and there's not a good... The easiest way to like find that is to... You're going to need like the speed it's moving at, and there's not good databases of, you know, thrown rock speeds. But what you can get good information on for like throwing speeds is baseball. So I'm going to use that and then branch out from there. So the average, like random average person baseball throwing speed is around 60 miles per hour for like a reasonably fit, like adult male.
Is that for like a pitch, or is that just like a general? Okay.
That's a pitch. So I'm sort of use that just because once again, there's better like numbers for pitching because there's a lot of like analysis of pitching.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to say 60 miles per hour is our baseball thrown speed. And you can use like the mass, velocity, and time of impact. So like the amount of time that the impact takes before it either, you know, fractures or bounces off to calculate the impact force. So we have that 60 miles per hour. Baseball's mass is about 145 grams. For impact duration, the impact duration of a ball on a bat is 0.7 milliseconds. That's not necessarily going to stay entirely the same because glass is different than a baseball bat, obviously. But I'm going to use that anyway because it's just what I had. And by those numbers, we get about 11,000 newtons of impact force at the peak. So I make another assumption here on the surface area of the baseball is in contact and impact. The diameter of a baseball is about 3 inches, so I said about 1 square inch of impact. Once again, don't have a good number on this. This is what people were saying for like their calculations on baseball, so I think it's reasonable. But doing that, I only wound up with 2,500 psi, which felt wrong, but I checked a couple times with like different like, you know, calculators and like check my numbers again, and apparently it's only 2,500 psi, which is far below our.
So we can throw our rocks pretty fast.
Well, we can throw baseballs.
We can throw baseballs.
So the one thing different here is that a baseball is obviously not a rock.
I love the deep analysis here.
This is the hard hitting
This
science
thing is not this thing.
you come here for. Baseballs aren't rocks.
I like the problem with rocks is that they're not all the same size, and they're all going different speeds.
Baseballs aren't rocks, but are rocks baseballs?
So I'm gonna try to make rocks baseballs. So there's 2 things you have to take into account here. One, a rock is going to flex a lot less than a baseball, so that impact duration is going to be shorter. So kind of arbitrarily, I dropped it to 0.1 milliseconds, just because rocks are pretty solid. So I figured that was pretty safe. I don't know. Other thing is that a rock is going to be heavier than a baseball. So took the baseball's volume, which is 219 cubic centimeters. I took granite as our rock. It's a pretty nice, you know, sort of base level rock there. Granite has a density of 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter. So our baseball, if we have a rock that is exactly baseball sized and shaped, it's going to weigh 592 grams, which is about 4 times more than that baseball. So with that heavier weight and smaller impact duration, we wind up with about 71,000 psi, which is far more than we need to break our walls. So there is a pretty big assumption there too, which is that someone can throw a rock that weighs 4 times more than a baseball, the same speed as a baseball. So once again, I don't know how fast people can throw rocks. I dropped it to 30 miles per hour. That may still not be enough, but at least gives us a good frame of reference. And that gets us...
No, I think it's actually pretty good.
Yeah?
From having done other baseball throwing questions, the limiting factor isn't strength, it's rotation speed of the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're actually not going to lose too much speed throwing a heavier object.
Oh, all right, fair. I had done a lot of annoying calculations already, and I didn't want to do any more, so that's good to hear. I will say that even if you drop it to 30 miles per hour, you're still at like 34,000 psi, which is still enough to break the glass.
Oh, yeah, no, it's going to break. I believe you that throwing a granite rock the size of a baseball at your glass wall at speed will damage it.
You know what? You're right. That's a pretty safe assumption, huh? So, assuming we're using timber glass, yes, don't throw rocks in your house. This, surprising no one, it is actually a bad idea.
So we've confirmed the saying.
Yeah. We do have another option, which is using bulletproof glass, which I was gonna like do calculations, and then I looked up the like defined protection levels for bulletproof glass, and like the lowest protection level is that it can stop 3 9mm handgun shots. So I think regardless of the level of bulletproof glass you have, you can throw a rock at it. It seems pretty safe.
Who's making that determination that 3 is enough bullets to withstand?
No, that's the best. That's the best thing is that there are like defined standards for 10 different levels of bulletproof glass, and all of them are just like a type of ammunition and the number of times you can shoot it. It's incredible.
It's like, all right, this guy's got a handgun. He's not going to shoot more than 3 times.
Right. It's ridiculous. It's very, very, very good.
Is the idea is that like they shoot once, realize it doesn't work, say fuck it, shoot 2 more times, realize that doesn't work, and then like give up? Is that the
I think
the mentality?
To be fair, I'm assuming they can probably take more than that as well. That's just like the minimum standard.
I know,
but it's still very good, right? And like also I love the idea that for, you know, all these scientists who made these bulletproof glasses, instead of like figuring out, you know, some, you know, PSI or something that you need in order for it to hit, it's like, no, we're gonna shoot some guns at it. That's the most scientific way to check this. But
Science
I appreciate
doesn't have
it.
to be high tech.
Yeah, that's very good. And finally, one last thing. I wanted to find, obviously this is a pretty big downside to a glass house, the fact that, I mean, I guess not being able to throw rocks isn't really a downside on its own, but, you know, like...
My hobby, though.
Right. Point being, I didn't want to find one benefit to having a glass house, and the only one I could find or think of off the top of my head was that currently it costs $300 to $1,000 to tear down an interior wall. That cost is going to come down. So you got that
good.
going for you. All you need is a baseball-shaped rock, and you're good. So that's what I have. Chris, what did you do? Yep, I had to bring up the thing.
So I looked at privacy because obviously glass is clear. You can see through it. So if you have a glass house, everyone will be able to see you and everything that you're doing. And that's not ideal. So I want to look at our different options for being more private. I didn't want to just say that you could just paint the inside of the glass. I feel like that's cheating. I think it needs to be the glass that you're using to increase your privacy. So I searched privacy glass, and the first thing that came up was electrified privacy glass, which is, it's basically like two panes of glass, and then in between there's a layer of liquid crystals, and they're conductive. So when you run an electric current through them, the crystals line up like parallel with each other, and you can see through the glass. It lets the light through, and you can see through the glass. And then when you turn the power off, those crystals go into like a random formation, and it scatters the light. So
That's cool.
Yeah, so the glass looks like frosted or opaque, translucent.
There's actually a conference room at the Boston office of where I work that has that, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. The thing is, it's only part glass. Like the middle part isn't glass. There's two panes of glass on the sides, and then the middle part's liquid crystal, and that part is not glass. So, according to my rule for not using paint, I feel like I can't use this either. I can't use the electrified privacy glass. So it's like, okay, what if I can just use normal frosted glass that does the same thing, basically? The way that they make this is they sandblast it, so they shoot like abrasive sand at the surface to roughen it, and that creates the frosted look. Sometimes they use like acid etching is what they call it, and if they want to do like more fine-tuned frosted patterns, or they use it for like art and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this works. This makes the glass frosted.
I always assumed frosting glass is more complicated than that. I don't know why.
Nope.
It makes sense. You just
shoot sand,
scratch it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's harder to make glass clear than it is to make it,
right,
not clear.
Yeah. So this kind of works for privacy, I guess, but still with frosted glass, you can still kind of see through it. Like especially if there's a lot of light on the other side, you'll see shapes and shadows and stuff like that. So it gives you some privacy, but not all the privacy. It doesn't like replace the privacy of a normal wall. So I was looking at other options, and I started looking at stained glass, because you can tint glass different colors if you add different things to them. So the way they stain glass is they add metals and metal oxides, and depending on the metal you choose, it turns a different color. And there are very, very few dark stained glasses that I could find. I did find some. I found a couple. So amethyst glass they add manganese oxide to a glass mixture of sand, potash, and lime, and that creates like a really dark purple hue to the glass. And it can be pretty dark if it's like a really, really, really thick piece of glass, but it still does let some light through. You can still sort of see through it. Maybe if you like combine it with the roughening, then it could help, but I want to see if we could do better. That was one of like the darkest like man-made glasses, but there is obsidian, which is a naturally occurring glass. It's a volcanic glass, and it is like a black color, so it's really, 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 really dark. And this has pretty much the desired optical properties that we're looking for if we want to make a wall that blocks light. But the thing is, it's like very brittle and very, very easily fractures. So that's not ideal for a house. So yes, it helps with privacy, but I don't think it's really a viable option.
What if you just have one band of obsidian at like waist height?
Okay. What about
So-
angles? What about people that are taller than other people?
What if to bend over for something?
You'll have to be strategic.
Everyone's gonna have those grabby claw things to pick up things off the ground.
Yeah.
Just never sit down in your own home.
Get really good at lifting things with your feet.
So that was stained glass. Those were the two best options I could find for stained glass. Next, I looked at mirrors because, like, if you can have a mirror for a wall, then obviously that's the best option because you can't see through it at all. It just reflects all the light. But I wanted to see if that actually qualifies as glass. I wasn't actually sure when I started out, so I started looked more into it. So mirrors have glass components to them. It's basically what's reflecting the light is there is a reflective coating of it's usually either silver or aluminum, and that coating is protected by a layer of glass. And they use glass as protection because it lets the light through and hit the reflective surface. So it's not actually the glass that's reflecting. I mean, glass reflects a little bit, but it's not the main part of the mirror. So I feel like that kind of falls under the same category as just using paint. It's just a coating on the glass. So I said, that doesn't count. I can't use mirrors. I also questioned one-way mirrors or two-way mirrors. I've never been clear whether it's called a one-way mirror or a two-way mirror.
The one where you can look through, but people can't see the other way.
Yeah.
That is one way.
There's one-way mirror. I've seen two-way mirrors too. I've seen it called two-way mirrors, but whatever. And the thing with one-way mirrors is that it's basically the same process as a mirror, like a normal mirror. It's just a thinner coat of metal so that it lets some light through. And it actually, like, the way it works is it reflects and transmits the same amount of light in both directions, no matter which way you're looking in the glass. It just depends on the difference of light on one side compared to the other, because if there's a lot of light on one side and not a lot of light on the other, then the amount of light reflected on the side with the light overpowers the amount of light coming through, because there isn't a lot of light coming through from the other side, which is why it only works if you have that light differential.
Oh, interesting. So you have to have your investigators in a dark room.
Yeah. But either way, that also still doesn't really work for how I classified using glass, because there's that metal coating. So that was like reflecting glass, but we can also refract glass because glass has refractive properties. And I found something called a lenticular lens. So these lenticular lenses they're basically small cylindrical glass lenses. They're like lined up parallel to each other, just a bunch of them in a line. And we use them right now to recreate or to like create the illusion of 3D. The way it works is like there are two images, or there's like strips of images from two different images next to each other, like alternating. I don't know if that makes sense the way I'm describing it. And then the lenses, they direct the light from those separate images to our separate eyes. So one eye sees one image, the other eye sees the other image, and it looks like a 3D image. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. But I also already kind of knew how those work, so I don't know if it makes sense to Ben. Did it make sense to you? No. Okay, moving on.
Basically, it just redirects light so that you see one image with one eye and one image with the other eye. And they use the lenticular lenses right now for there are different methods for creating this 3D effect, but 3D TVs, some of them use this lenticular lens.
That's where I'd heard it before. It's 3D TVs. Those were a thing once.
Yeah, so you can have this 3D effect without having without wearing glasses. That's how they do that. But the way it relates to our problem is that I found a product called Quantum Stealth, and it's kind of, so they advertise it sort of as like invisibility glass, and the way it uses these lenticular lenses to bend the light around, or I guess around from whatever the object is behind it, so that you don't see it. So it's created by a company called Hyper Stealth Biotechnologies, and So if you have like an object behind the glass, you can see stuff that's really, really, really close to the glass, and you can see stuff that's really, really, really far away from the glass, but there's a blind spot in between that where you can't see. So there's like a video of a guy just like walking behind it and you can't see him. And the website for this company isn't really the greatest. I don't know how I don't know how official this this product is, but it looks like there's some skepticism on the internet, but it's not clear whether it's legit or not. But I'm gonna say it is legit.
You've heard it here, folks.
I mean, there's a lot of videos, but like demonstrating how this works, but it's only by this one guy, and it's unclear whether this company is just this one guy or not.
And then weirdly at the bottom of the website, it just says glass resist 24,000 psi, and then it's linked from a bunch of other places.
Yeah, I guess our glass information's coming from a lot of unverified sources, but but there were like a bunch of news articles covering this product, so I feel like it is somewhat legit. And like the physical properties behind it, like the description of the physics of light, makes sense to me. Like you can bend light in certain ways to avoid people from seeing something that's behind the glass. That makes sense. So you can, the version that I found of this product was made of plastic, but you can make it out of glass if you want. Glass refracts light just like plastic does. So, and the videos I saw were only of like really small scale demonstrations, but I feel like you'd be able to scale it up too. So if you want to have privacy in your house, I think you can make these lenticular lens walls, and people will not be able to see in your blind spot. You just have to stay in that blind spot.
Could you make your blind spot your whole house, and everybody's house is just invisible from the street?
Well, so it doesn't actually, it's not like you don't see anything at all. It still distorts light, so you can still see a distortion. I guess it is sort of, it adds to the invisibility effect a little bit, but I mean, I guess the blind spot is just, you can't go really close to the walls, but anywhere in between, you're good. So that's privacy in glass. Go with lenticular lenses if it's legit. If it's not legit, go with stained glass.
Got it. This is on you, the listener, to find out if this is a real thing.
Yeah.
We're going to have you do a lot of legwork this time, listeners.
Marcus, what do you do?
All right, so the first thing I looked at was how far can we go with our house, with our glass house? Basically, how much of our house can actually be just pure glass? So as a structural material, glass is pretty good strength-wise. It's one of the few times in our show where we've actually used a material to build something that is, in real life, used in construction. We have lots of buildings that actually use glass. But there is one big problem with glass as a building material, and it's that it's brittle. So generally, buildings are not actually as rigid as people think. More flexible buildings can actually even allow up to like an inch of motion per floor of height. So like if you have a 12-story building that's that flexible, like at the top story, it would be like a foot. It could move a foot, that top story, from, the same point in the ground.
That's scary to think of.
I know.
Yeah, like skyscrapers in Manhattan can have 2 to 3 feet of sway at the top of the building. You don't not feel it. People have reported that you can feel the sway. Like the famous example was actually the World Trade Center, where it was like people were saying that if you were up on like the 80, 90th floor, you could feel the sway while you were up there. But generally, when you have a much taller building in Manhattan, they limit the deflections a little bit. So an inch per floor on a 100-story building would be like 8 feet of deflection. So they limit it a little bit.
Right, yeah.
But basically, the main point is buildings need to move a little bit, because the way buildings fail is that your structural material, whenever you put a force on it, it's gonna try and bend. And when the bending is too much for the material to allow that elongation or that deflection, that's when the material actually breaks. So steel and wood are really great at allowing this motion without any structural problems. Glass, on the other hand, is not. So basically, even though glass, by the physical strength of it, is, on the same level as structural materials, and yeah, you can throw, not a granite, but you can throw a baseball at a piece of glass and it'll be generally okay. So it's strong, and you can imagine it's kind of hard to if you're trying to like smack, like, bend apart a window, it might be pretty tough with your bare hands. You're like, yeah, this could hold some weight.
Are you about to say manhandle?
Manhandle the window, and just like break it with your arms. I don't know. Just trying to picture windows being strong, because they are. But when you have a whole building, it has to give a little bit. And in order to make the glass, in order to make the building so strong that it won't move, because you can keep increasing it, making it, the glass thicker and thicker and thicker and stronger and stronger and stronger until the forces on it don't make it move. But one problem is that is going to just require excessively thick glass. And two, it doesn't help you at all in a seismic event. If there's an earthquake or something, it's going to move your building no matter what, regardless of how strong it is. And in fact, stiffer buildings are usually weaker in earthquakes. So, if you have an earthquake, your whole building might just shatter apart if it's all pure glass. So what they do in real buildings that don't shatter all the time is that the glass is connected with frames. So you have your rigid piece of glass in the middle, and on the outside where you have like the caulking or the steel frame or however it connects, that connection has give. So like you can almost see the glass, like the frame will move and the glass inside the frame will kind of squish up on all the attachments on the outside. So that's how glass works in real construction. I don't think you can get around it. You can make different types of connections with glass, but because all the individual components are so brittle, you can't allow the motion. So you can have big, fat glass panels everywhere, but you are going to have to tie it into some kind of framing or connections that are a little bit flexible. So sadly, we can't have a pure glass house, but we'll deal. Then I want to look as far as like the other parts inside your house that you could have in glass. As far as like furniture and things, you can have pretty much anything you can make out of glass. Glass stairs are already fairly commonplace. Like you can have some nice fancy stairs. So if you want to go that route.
I'm trying to imagine sleeping on a glass bed.
It would just be hard. Like it would just be cold and hard and not very pleasant.
It'd be visually weird.
What I like less is the glass pillow on the glass bed.
Yeah, glass pillow is not going to be great.
Like might even be able to get comfortable if it's molded properly, but just like shifting in the night and like you just lift your pillow for a hot second and like slam it back down on the sheet.
Yeah, the coldness of it's going to be really bad too.
Yeah. But some other stuff you can do with glass is you can do the plumbing system can be made out of glass. I actually saw some videos. Laboratories use glass plumbing for acid drainage. So it was kind of cool. You could see they had like all the pipes going down, and all of them are like regular copper pipes and things and metal pipes. And then there's like one line of glass pipe like in the middle of it. And it was showing like the acid like flowing through it. You could watch the fluids move through the pipes. And I thought that was really cool.
That was pretty cool.
Not sure if you want all your plumbing to be clear glass, like maybe just your potable water, and not what's going out to the
I have a lot
street.
of acid that I drain.
Yeah. I just drink straight Monster Energy drinks all day, so I need a glass piping in my plumbing. And then for the HVAC system, again, you could fairly easily create the ductwork, and I mean fairly easy as glass work gets, but it does raise the issue of glass insulation. So glass is notorious for being the way houses let in a lot of cold air, and you can imagine a house made entirely of glass is going to be have a tough time keeping climate control going. But with like double and triple layered windows, which you could do for your walls, is what you're going to want to do. They're actually quite good at insulating. They're not quite as good as like an insulated wall, but the difference is going to be like a change in your energy bill, not in like I need a new type of system to heat my home. Like you don't need to put like a fire pit in the center of your house to keep warm in the winter. So the house generally works if you allow some real world adjustments here and there. So the last thing I looked at here is actually making all this glass. So there's billions of houses in the world, so we're going to need quite a lot of glass. Luckily, glass is made out of one of the easiest materials to find, which is just sand. So glass is just liquid sand. So all you have to do is take the sand and heat it to a very high temperature. And that's really the trick, is getting that high temperature to literally melt the sand into glass. So silicon dioxide, the silica sand that glass is made from, melts at 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit. However, we do add soda ash and potassium nitrate as additives to lower that temperature to about 2,450 degrees. So we go from 3,200 to 2,450.
Still very hot.
Still very hot. Also, I apologize if you guys can hear that car honks outside. There's like
I was
people.
wondering what that was.
What is that? They're just literally just honking constantly at each other.
Honk battle.
Those are some angry geese.
I can hear them revving too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what is happening?
I'm actually gonna go to the window. Hold on.
Is
Please
it like
do.
a car battle? Car fight? Road rage? Marcus is very much not on a road rage type of street.
No, yeah, I don't know how this has happened. Like, I'm glad he's checking because I just want to know.
Wow.
Whoa. What is...
Okay, this is actually pretty adorable. So it looks like what's happening is that there's literally a line of cars coming through, and they all got balloons and happy birthday balloons. So I think it's somebody in my building's birthday.
Oh my god.
And because of the quarantine, you can't, they're not having a big party, but everyone is coming to visit by driving past. And they have just this line of cars in our loop where everyone has balloons out their window and waving and, honking.
That's pretty awesome.
That's great, but not really ideal for a podcasting situation.
We can't be mad though.
We can't be
Yeah, I
mad.
know.
It's really adorable.
And I think it's a young girl's birthday because there's a bunch of young girls in these cars that are the ones out waving. So
God, that's adorable.
I think we can excuse that. You can continue.
Yeah.
also, there's like a good 25 cars that are just in line out there and none of them are moving anymore. So honestly, this could be
This could be
few
a
minutes.
while, yeah.
So anyway, glass needs to be hot, very hot, 2,450 degrees hot. So this can be accomplished at a glass factory in special ovens and furnaces, but we'll need so much of this glass. I want to kind of look at other ways we could get up to that temperature. The first thought I had was lightning. So a bolt of lightning can heat the air to a temperature of over 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a crazy number. It is 5 times hotter than the surface of the surface of the sun. Sorry, all the birthday fun's getting to me.
Surface of the Fun is an incredible album name.
Surface of the sun. Anyhow, it's just funny because I saw it compared multiple times to being 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. And then, every other one did acknowledge that also the surface of the sun is the coolest part of the sun. And the interior of the sun is more like 15 million degrees, which obviously is a lot hotter than 50,000. So it's kind of a weird science metaphor in that, yeah, it's hotter than the coldest part of the sun. It's still very, very hot.
When you said the coolest part of the sun, I thought you meant oh, that's so cool.
Like the sickest
No,
part
you're
of the sun.
thinking of the Surface of the Fun album again.
Yeah.
So what's cool is lightning actually already sometimes does make glass on its own when it strikes a beach. So it creates this beach glass where it forms these branching tubes of glass in the sand where it heats it up very quickly, and there's these it looks like a root system almost of sand that solidifies. The good thing about this is that you can actually control this. If you people have stuck rebar in the sand, to be a conductive material to make straight tubes of this sand glass. The only problem is that it's such a quick process that the glass it makes is very weak, and it's not good glass. You need to expose glass when they make glass in a factory, they'll expose it for hours to get the right strength and consistency we expect. So lightning, while very exciting, is not a very good way to make glass. My second thought was volcanoes. The theory being, if you can melt rocks, you can also melt very tiny rocks that are sand. So molten lava, good old fresh molten lava, can get up to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just short of our target melting point of 2,450. That said, we may be able to further reduce the melting point with more additives. So if we add more of this soda ash and things, maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know, because we brought it from 3,200 to 2,450. I feel like we can get that last 250 by putting more shit in it. And then if we have that, then we can just kind of lower our sand in a frame into the lava pit, and it'll be hot enough to turn it into glass. And I'm like, this is great. But the real flaw in the plan is not the concept itself, which is great, as I said it just a second ago. The real flaw in the plan is that volcanoes don't really have that big molten lava lakes in them like we imagine.
It's not like Mount Doom.
It's not like Mount Doom where you look over the edge of the crater and then there's just a 300-foot pit of lava that's oh yeah, here we go, we'll just dip the some stuff in here. Not to say there's none. But there are only 8 what they call persistent lava lakes in the world. So of all the volcanoes, only 8 of them will persistently have a lava lake. But even those 8, some of them are cyclical, or some of them are like fresh and they expect to go away soon. So even then, there's not 8 of them at any given time, which is very sad for me because I want lava windows, which I guess I could do just myself. But generally, for everybody else, you're just going to have to use the boring old ovens. And boy, do I hate that volcanoes aren't cooler.
Well, I think the problem is they're too cool, right?
Yeah, they're too cool.
There we go.
Oh, bad. With that zinger, I think we're going to move on to our Would You Rather round. All right, Ben. Are you ready?
Sure.
Would you rather wear a onesie 24/7 for a year or a horsehead costume for a month straight?
Also 24/7, I assume.
I would
Yes.
imagine 24/7, yeah. Is it the same onesie?
Yeah, well, it's 24/7, so you don't have an opportunity to change it.
You're right. What if I put on a onesie over the first onesie and then take off the inner onesie?
How do you put on a onesie without taking off the other onesie?
We just put it over the onesie. I think the
Can you take off a onesie while wearing a onesie?
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
I'm trying to imagine in my head if that's possible.
I think you could. I guess.
You'd have to. You could. No.
Is it?
No,
Are you
you
wearing it if it's unzipped in the front still?
You could curl up into the onesie, so like the onesie is a house.
If it's loose enough, you have to get a leg out of the leg tube.
Right. That's
And
the tough part.
it's a double thick leg tube because you have 2 of them on.
Yeah. I think you could do it, but it would not be a daily thing.
I think technically you could do it.
I think it's against the spirit of the thing, though.
All right, that's fair.
So we'll say. I think if that's an option, that's probably going to be the way to do it. But then again, there are other issues with wearing a onesie.
Yeah. So I will say, I for Halloween one year was BoJack Horseman, and I had a horse head mask on for that, and that was fucking terrible.
Why was so bad about it?
It's one, you don't have great visibility or ability to breathe, or very pressingly for Halloween party, the ability to drink alcohol or anything particularly well.
Oh yeah, how would you eat in this situation with the horse?
So you can do it. There is usually a hole in like the mouth, which is kind of what you can like see out of. But what we're gonna have to do is get like, like the I think the way it's gonna work is the forks you use for fondue. I think you're gonna have to slice things into pretty small pieces and then skewer them on one of those and feed it into yourself through the hole, which isn't great. I'm not gonna lie.
That does suck. Although it is just a month as opposed to a year.
Yeah, but it's going to smell real bad in there after a month. Whereas you could conceivably wash yourself and onesie all at once in like a bath or shower. And it wouldn't be great. It would be pretty bad crying off. But at least you could.
How long can you get away with wearing a onesie before it's rank?
Oh, man.
So I guess is if you have... There's different levels of onesie. If you have like a thin, like just like cotton onesie that's like kind of light, you're in better shape than if you have like a fleece onesie.
Yeah, I was imagining a fleece onesie. That's what was in my head.
Is there a butt flap?
Yeah, how's
Yes,
the bathroom?
we're gonna add some small mercy to the list to all of us
cool.
thinking about this. There's a butt flap.
Good. Got to get that whole, like old-fashioned panhandler vibe going full on. So cool.
Okay, I'll say this for a fleece onesie, I think you're maxed out at 2 days before you have to clean it.
Yeah.
Because you get sweaty no matter what. Like, you're gonna get sweaty in it.
Cotton, you might be able to go a week.
I think you go a week. It wouldn't be like, and this is just saying it's a week before it's like unbearable.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Because you also haven't showered in this week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you have a thin onesie, a week clean off, and then you're in the wet onesie for like.
Would cleaning, like, how would that work? Cleaning it off, because like the inside of the onesie is going to be dirty too.
Well, the water can penetrate.
Yeah,
the
you
fabric.
just spray some soap on your body, out like down the neck hole of the onesie, and go to town. Like,
oh no, that doesn't seem like a good idea. I think you just let it soak through.
Then all the dirt and oil and stuff is going to gather at the bottom at your feet.
no, you open the butt flap.
Oh yeah.
You get some flow through there.
amazing.
I can't right now.
Just the mental image I got of just like someone in the shower and then just like grabbing some monkey bars at the top so the butt flap was the lowest part. And then just like...
But what I saw was like a science textbook style diagram of like a onesie with like an arrow that starts up at the neck hole and goes down out through the butt flap to show the flow of material out.
Well, the problem is it's not like you have to... It's all the foot stuff that has to go out. So you have to get your legs above your butt.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I am right about that, right? The onesies, they cover your feet, right?
Yes.
They do.
They don't cover your hands, do they?
They don't cover your hands.
Okay.
No, they don't cover your hands. So I guess you could let some out the sleeve, but the butt flap is going to be your...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think the big advantage of the onesie is that your head is not covered.
Right. We need to discuss the horse head. Or I guess it's you said it's like a full...
Here's a point for the horse head.
Mm-hmm.
If this were to happen to me in my real life right now, and assuming when I tell someone this is a thing I have to do because it happened, like I never thought it would happen to me, but this is my life now, I don't think they're going to believe me that I have to wear either of these things for as long as I say I do.
Yeah.
I have, I could make 4 weeks vacation from work happen without losing my job, probably. I can't make a year happen.
Yeah.
I could take a month and be like, I'm not coming to work.
I'd be like, oh, are you going on a trip somewhere?
Yes, I'm going to Antarctica, where not much exciting will happen. Don't worry about the details.
I'm going to take no pictures.
I'm going to take no pictures because I'll have lost my camera in the ocean on the way there. On the very boring boat ride where also nothing happened. So you could do that and spend a month at home with a horse head on.
God, that sounds so brutal.
You don't even have to stay at home, really, because no one...
You could go on a crime spree. You do have the mask already.
But you can't take it off, so it doesn't really work as a disguise.
It works once. Then you're pretty obvious.
Spend 3 weeks planning one crime and 1 week executing.
Yeah. I feel like right now I'm being swayed by my experience having worn a horse mask before.
I'm kind of almost swayed by that same experience because that same Halloween that you had the horse head mask, I was in a fleece dinosaur onesie and I was so comfortable. And I'm like, why doesn't everyone do this every year?
Yeah, I think the onesie is definitely the better experience, but the extra time in the onesie is the factor.
It is a long time. How well... Hold on. Wait a minute. Hear me out. I think you could conceal the fact you're wearing a onesie pretty well.
Oh, by putting clothes over it?
Yeah.
Or what if you got one of those novelty tuxedo onesies?
Ooh.
And then added accessories like a real belt and a jacket over it maybe to be like, oh no, this now looks like a real tuxedo.
See, I think you just get a base colored onesie and you can wear a tuxedo over it if you needed to. It's probably a better idea. However, I like your idea still.
However, I also like that.
Doesn't solve the cleaning issue, though.
I mean...
Look, you can do it. The worst part about it is that it's going to be a little weird to shower, and then the worst part of it is going to be that you can use the hairdryer, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking hairdryer too, to dry yourself
but you're going
out.
to be damp for a good, hour or two.
You're going to have to pick your bathing days to be, days that are not humid, and are preferably a little warm.
What was the one place that where we stayed in, when we did an Airbnb down in Florida? The bathroom had a sauna heater, like in the ceiling vent there was a heat vent, and it just shot hot air down like a hairdryer would. I'm like, that if you had that, you're set. So if your house is set up for it, bam, onesie's even easier. But I think regardless, the horse head for a month is just...
How are you gonna wash your head with the horse head on?
I'm gonna assume the horse head is not watertight.
Yeah.
I thought it was what material is it made out of?
It's like latex. But there's holes in it. There are holes in it. It's not going to be good. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be pretty hard to dry out afterwards, but...
Here's the benefit of the onesie. Imagine you do this 1 year with the onesie, right? And you just become known as the person who wears a onesie all the time, no matter what. Then it's your choice. Then you can change your onesie and you avoid all the technical issues, and you can just wear a onesie for the rest of your life as your
That's
clothes.
A really good
That's
point.
an upside.
Yeah.
That is a
Then you have an
serious upside.
excuse.
Once your YouTube channel, One with Onesie, is taken off.
Yeah, and your horsehead channel has been lost into the mess of other horsehead channels.
Right, yeah.
So this one seems pretty clear to me. I think I'd rather wear the onesie.
I'm going onesie.
I'm going onesie.
Awesome. All agree.
A rarity.
Speaking of rarities, a rarity for our show is coming up, and that is, well, it's very rare because it can only happen once. It is our 100th episode is coming up. So, for our 100th episode, our plan is to answer 100 hypothetical questions in 100 minutes in the most ultimate epic lightning round ever. Until we get 200 episodes, we do 200 questions in 200
Don't commit
minutes.
to that, please, God. Don't commit to that.
Seems sustainable to me.
Does not.
But anyway, because we need 100 questions, and Chris's book of 3,000 hypothetical questions that he got is not great, we are looking for more questions from you, the listener. So send us an email at absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com. Send us a tweet on our Twitter at absurdhype, HYPE hype. Go onto our Facebook page, facebook.com/absurdhypotheticals, I guess. Just put it in the search bar there. Any way that you can get in contact with us and send us a question, we would more than love to have it. Because we need 100 questions, it's almost virtually guaranteed to show up on the episode unless it involves, like, penises. And even then, maybe.
There's a chance. We don't always stay away from that.
And not only will your question, your clever question, you clever person, be eternalized in our audio format here, there is also an audio book incentive. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I have written a book. It's called Serial Cortex, and it is a sci-fi crime thriller. And I'm coming out with an audio version that just came out, and I'm giving away free codes. I have 100 free codes for the audiobook. So if you send us a question to that email that he said, absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com, and in that email you say, code please, I will send you a code for this audiobook for free. And just a little more about the book. It is about a team of homicide detectives, and they travel into the mind of a killer suspect in their homicide investigation. That's the word.
You should write a pitch down, Chris.
I know. Winging it. Yeah, and they just explore the killer's mind, and a lot of weird, interesting stuff happens. So if that sounds like it's up your alley, if you like science fiction, if you like crime thrillers, then let me know. Just say code please in the email, and I'll send you a code.
Awesome. One last note about the question submission. Do not wait till episode 99 to send them to us. We record in the future. So therefore, basically, by episode 95 or so, that'll probably be the last opportunity to send in questions, because after that, we will have already recorded the 100th episode. So, please get your questions in by the end of May. That'll be the cutoff for both the codes and for the question submission deadline. So get them in. We'd love to answer them. We'd love to have them. And then my last thing on my list here is, if you enjoy the show or you want to pay Chris some small amount of money for his free code he gave you, you can go on to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals, and become a patron to the podcast. It is the best way to support the show. You get access to bonus content every month in our behind-the-scenes episodes, and it would mean the world to us to have your support. But either way, please join us next week where we answer the following question. What if grass didn't exist?